All right, welcome back to Morning Line. Final segment this morning. Our guests with us this morning, Gini Pupo-Walker, along with Christiane, both on the Metro School Board, talking a range of issues this morning. Taking a few phone calls, but not a lot, and we were talking about that during the break. I wonder sometimes as people listen to this, they're digesting what they're hearing. Some people are engaged. The viewers at this hour, I'm not sure if they're all parents one way or the other, but it must be nice at a point where you don't have your phone ringing all the time. This morning, folks are listening, maybe not calling in, but you're welcome to join in this. Money is at the heart of so much of all of this as we get away from COVID. I was talking about school buses. School buses are crucial for so many families. Without them, the kid can't get to work or to school because the parents have to go to work, and they don't always have the option of driving them. And every single district has a shortage of school bus drivers. We've seen pictures of kids, you know, sometimes they have to double up the buses, and the kids are sitting on each other's laps almost. And you know, bottom line is just money on that, finding qualified school bus drivers. If you can pay more, you'll get them, because in a lot of ways, it's not, I'm not going to say it's a thankless job. It's a very, very important job, but it's a difficult job. Split shifts, bratty kids, parents complaining, not a lot of pay. Gosh forbid if something goes wrong, you know, they're going to be asking you an awful lot of questions because you're the driver. It's a tough job. I respect the good drivers out there. I respect the heck out of them. And they must do it because they love kids.
We have bus drivers that are absolutely adored and loved by families, by students that have been picking up kids in the same family for years. They're the first face and the last face students see.
That's right.
We have special education buses with monitors that are absolutely critical to getting students with critical needs to schools every day. Absolutely, we need to pay more. We need to do better in terms of getting folks in the door, but it is a national issue. But this is true in so many sectors right now. Finding employees for all kinds of things is so tremendously hard. It's such a competitive market. We're open to ideas. I mean, you know, there are districts in this country who are now paying parents to drive.
Oh, is that right?
So they will pay parents a stipend to run a carpool. We've seen in Massachusetts, National Guard is driving buses. I mean, it is really, people are now getting very creative on this.
Well, what happens, though, seriously, when, you know, I guess, and it can happen on any given day when some bus drivers call out sick, they're ill, or you just don't have enough, and literally no one to drive the bus for several routes. What do you do?
So I remember my mom saying, maybe a year into my term as a school board member, that people don't understand the issues that public schools face because every day we just make it work. So every day, all of our educators make it work. Our bus drivers double and triple routes, meaning that they are driving for more than just that one route. They're driving 2 and 3 and 4, going back for students. You have cafeteria workers that are doing the same. You know, when we talk about teachers, we're talking about every educator, every person that's in a building or that's in any way, you know, helping or supporting students.
Yeah, there are principals in the back cooking.
I mean, there are all kinds of things. I mean, so every day, our people just make it work. And we've got to not only thank them and support them, but we have got to be talking more intentionally about how we're being funded and how we're giving them money. Because just for our bus drivers, like I said, for a $1 raise, I think it cost about, what, $700,000, almost $1 million for $1 raise. And they easily deserve another $15 raise. But if all we keep hearing is that we should be able to do more with less, that shifts the narrative, and that makes our people, our staff, our teachers, our educators feel even more undervalued or devalued.
Yeah, and so many of the people that complain about their property taxes or whatever going up are the same people that then complain that the bus didn't come by and pick up the kid today because they didn't have a driver. It's just everyone wants something for nothing these days. Everyone complains about taxes. That's fine. No one likes high taxes, but then they complain when the service that they really expect isn't there. And why do you think that is? Well, they're going to say, oh, there's waste. You can find a way to make it happen.
And unfortunately, we do.
Yeah, and maybe you shouldn't. You know, maybe like, you want to know what? Is this what you want? Well, have at it. Let's see how you like this.
It's a tough one. It's a really tough one because at the end of the day, it's our students who suffer.
That's the issue. That whenever there are strikes or whenever we just don't make it happen, it's our kids who get behind. I mean, I was a middle school teacher, and I remember tutoring some of my middle school students as high schoolers when I moved to a different job, right? And I remember one student in particular saying, "Why didn't I learn this about slope?" And I said, "Well, remember that day that you didn't come to school, or remember that day you had a rough day and you were put out of class, or remember that day when you argued with someone?" There's always harm done to children when we as adults don't get it right. whether
Correct.
it's the system as a whole, whether it's funding that's under-resourcing them, whether it's a community that's under-resourced. It's the children who end up suffering long-term.
Okay, so, but now where do things stand then, from your perspective, with funding for metro schools right now? Now, we know there was all that hullabaloo with the property tax increase and all that, which came at a very difficult time. It was very controversial. It was challenged in court, but ultimately it went through. And the thinking was, thank goodness we did get this in here, because it's going to, at least from the mayor's perspective, pay for an awful lot of things. And the thinking was, hopefully that puts schools and other things on a more solid financial ground, as opposed to had it not occurred, right?
Correct.
And we had plenty of people tell us what would happen had they won in court the challenges to it. Boy, what would you guys have done then?
It would have been
detrimental.
Really, really rough.
I mean, we have 6,000 teachers, like certificated classroom teachers. We would have had to fire at least 1,000. That's the first thing. So imagine that classroom of 30, becoming a classroom.
Tripling, yeah.
Yes. Imagine the physics, the biology, the literacy teachers who are often hard to find and recruit and retain. Imagine those classes having twice and 3 times as many students. What does that do to them? And let me tell you, the extra maybe $1,000 a year I have to pay in property taxes, I'm fine with that, because then that means that I can pay, that everyone around me, everyone that impacts my family, my child, me, is being paid just a little bit more. Our firefighters, our police officers, because it didn't only benefit MNPS, it benefited the entire city.
Right.
But again, we don't talk, we're not as collaborative as we really should be. We don't think in terms of us being neighbors and community, and one feeds the other. We have become a bit more selfish than I would like us to be, but Nashville, we can do better. I'm holding us to a high standard.
Yeah, I like that, and we all should do that. I mean, I just hope we all want for me, I want an educated populace. I want these kids. I worry about some of these kids, not just in Nashville, but across the country over the last 2.5 years. It's like a little black hole dip in their level of education through no one's fault. It's COVID's fault, and there's just no way despite best efforts. I'm telling you, the last 2 years they didn't learn as much in the last 2 years as they would have if COVID never came along. And there's no way I'm sorry, it just sucks. And I worry about these youngsters as they move forward. Man, your education is your ticket. Whether you go to college or you go into a trade, whatever. If you don't have education, man, you're gonna have a tough time. You gotta know stuff, is what I'm saying, whatever it is.
Don't disagree. I think we are now in the process of what we would call recovery, right? Identifying those students who have really fallen furthest behind, who need the most support. We had very intensive summer camps this summer, identified students who needed to come. We had, 15,000 kids in camps. That's bigger than most districts in Tennessee in a summer camp program. And so we're pulling off sort of large-scale tutoring programs, intervention programs, after-school programs to really address that. But it is a big lift.
Will it be reflected in tests at some point?
It already has been.
Where they can compare like the test scores, right? I guess I've seen some. I'm thinking more farther along the lines if it affects as these students, go for PSATs or ACTs and all of that.
There are certainly entities that are going to be tracking students that are looking not just at their academic growth, but also their social emotional growth. What does it look like for their maturity? What different markers are they meeting? Milestones, things like that. So I am nervous about that. I am anxious to see how our students can kind of be supported and families can recover. But at the same time, this generation of young people gives me hope, because they're pushing back in a lot of systemic ways. They're not just taking what's being handed to them and they're just not okay with it. They're not allowing the status quo to mandate what their lives will look like or what the lives of the entire nation will look like. And so I'm hanging a lot of hope on that. That not just their resilience, but their foresight and their connectivity to one another and their community building.
Yeah, I see that. I sure hope so. And I'm wondering, what percentage do you think of students out of metro schools go on to college? Do we know?
So the largest number of students go on to Nashville State Community College.
Okay.
That's the number one choice for largest number of kids.
Community college, which by the way is free, which is a great deal.
Absolutely.
And again, I'm not saying that you have to go to college to succeed, depending on what it is you want to do. I think any education, the more you do, the better.
Well, there's a lot of evidence that shows jobs in Tennessee require some kind of post-secondary credential. Whether it's an industry certification, whether it's a technical degree, whether it's a 4-year degree. We know that lifetime earnings are multiplied with those post-secondary credentials.
That's true.
And so our job is to make sure, one, that kids are prepared to succeed beyond high school, but also that we have systems in place to apply, to look at choices, to go where their talents are, their aspirations are. We have a ways to go. We have kids who are not getting there.
Yeah, and not only that, the dropout rate?
The dropout rate is not, putting COVID aside, is not as big as it once was.
Okay.
It's really that question of, are they going on to getting a post-secondary degree?
Okay.
And that's the thing, the marker for us, for me, of success, is are they actually going on to post-secondary, to college?
Because we want to make sure that our students are college and career ready. We want to make sure that they have a choice in life. But our whole goal is preparation for them. I want my baby to be able to decide what he wants to do next and for him to be ready to do it.
I think that's what every parent hopes.
That's
and
right.
Education is the key to it. Thank you both for coming on.
Thanks for the invitation.
If you sat here and listened through this conversation one way or the other, you can't help but be thankful we have people like you on the school board. You care. Yeah, there's no question. You may not always agree with everything they always say, but anyone who doesn't think these two don't care, you're just dead wrong. They care. Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll talk again. I'll be back with a programming note right after this. Thank you, guys.